I did run the fruit and honey experiment, maybe a couple of weeks. My energy really was very low at that point in time. And, having honey in the house was just a slippery slope for me because, a quarter teaspoon leads to a teaspoon. And so I ended that experiment really quickly and my energy resolved. I did a half marathon and my energy was sustained throughout, obviously without any carbohydrates.
Well, good morning, everybody. We have our guest. Looks like I see Michelle here. Michelle, good morning. Tell me where you're located.
Thank you and good morning. I live in San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very nice. And that's where our company is actually headquartered in San Francisco. So
I'm aware.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for being willing to come on and do this and share your story with us. And so I guess with that, I'll just say, let's just start chatting tell us a little bit about yourself and, what happened to you and where you're at these days, that type of stuff.
I'm 61. I'll be 62 next month. I think what I'm going to do is tell you about I started Carnivore in December of 21. So I'm going to tell you about my first year, and then I'll do some backstory because I think it's a little bit more interesting. So at the time that I started, I was already following an app which basically gave me a breakdown of the macros that are right for me. So, that was adequate protein, low fat, low carb. I have been dealing with chronic forearm tendonitis, as well as pain on both sides of my elbow since about the end of 2018. And I've tried a bunch of different things for that. I've always been bloated. I've always been constipated. Since my early 40s, I've had just a tiny patch of eczema. So I thought, why not give this a try? And so for me, I really didn't have any issues transitioning. So what I like to think of meat and the the fat that goes along with it is kind of my gatekeeper. And so I find that when I have the protein with its fat, I don't have any kind of cravings. My energy's good. Another way of stating that is when my mind starts wandering and thinking about other foods, I have to do a quick check and say, so when's the last time you ate? And really any cravings are resolved for me as long as I eat adequate protein. Immediately, which is just amazing because it's been a lifelong thing that I've dealt with. The bloating and constipation were gone. I mean, as if I had never had them before. The eczema smoothed out. It talks to me a little bit with eggs. I don't think eggs are quite perfect for me. The pain in my arm is gone. It talks to me at certain times based on certain activities that I do. So anyway, which I can go more into. The nice thing about that is that when you remove many, many factors in your life, you kind of can check it off your list and say, okay, these things aren't really bothering me anymore in terms of inflammation or things that might be leading to inflammation. So now I can maybe work on, really what's going on with my arm. So I really don't have pain with my arm unless I do certain activities. So that's pretty terrific. Let's see. My sleep is great. As I stated, my energy is fine. I realized a while into this carnivore journey that I hadn't taken the fistful of supplements that I had dutifully been taking for years, mostly in and around adrenals and thyroid, low thyroid. I try to stay hydrated throughout the day. If I'm going to do an endurance activity, I'll toss in some electrolyte to go along with that. The other thing that I'm no longer, interested in is, chasing these errant biomarkers, mostly in and around my thyroid or adrenals. It's like, well, okay, if I'm eating this way and I'm feeling good, everything is good. I'm just going to choose to, live my life. And that's been my approach. Initially, I didn't take off weight, but my clothes really started fitting differently. I just kind of decided to ditch the scale. Eventually, some weight came off, 8 pounds or so, but my clothes still fit the same. So the other thing is I really try to honor listening to my hunger signals. Yeah, and I can talk more about that from my past life, where just not eating, and so I eat when I'm hungry. Translates to probably about twice a day. I can't eat the amount of protein that I need in one sitting. It's just way too much for me. So it's about twice a day. I enjoy running. And so what I noticed is I don't have any pain from running, but on a day, say that I would do a longer run, say 5-6 miles, I felt like I had really worked. And, my body would say, hey, take a break tomorrow in terms of that particular activity. And what I notice is that I don't, when I do a longer run, I don't even notice it in my body. So as if I could, go back and do it again the next day. So a highlight for me during this first year was in June, I did a half marathon outside of Glacier. So a couple of things. I don't train that distance, and I certainly don't run at that altitude. It's just about under 5,000 feet. So as a carnivore, I was a little curious, and my energy was sustained throughout. My recovery was pretty seamless. I took the next day off, except for, just some light walking. And by the following day, my body it felt good. And I did that obviously without any carbohydrates. So that's been my first year as a carnivore. Some further background about me is I've always been very active. I've always, I guess, struggled with weight. And, it's been just a constant history of overeating or undereating, constantly on the go, yet fatigued. I always thought I had low thyroid, but the doctor would check one marker and say, nope, you're good. And on I would go. I love to cook. I do love vegetables, although I will say that I don't miss them, given the way that I eat now. And again, I can't stress enough, I've always been bloated and always been constipated. I'm a big fan of doing kind of deep dives in terms of, getting my own information, done a lot of N as one experiments. Kind of my trajectory with eating started in the early 2000s. So we really embraced Weston Price and nourishing traditions, and, food and lifestyle basically became our medicine. We moved to Oregon for a while, and we started a farm. We raised pastured and grass-fed meat. So that was really an exciting time for our family, and to have my children be a part of that, a big part of that. During that time, I also started paleo, 2012 or so. 2013, I started HIIT training 5 days a week. I was involved in a pretty physically demanding equestrian sport. I would run 3 or 4 days a week. And that was also about the time that menopause came knocking at my door. So the symptoms that, kind of go along with that. By the time I finally, went, I got some blood work done. Plus I had looked down at my body and I was like, whose body do I have? Because I got fleshier, let's just say. By the time I got my blood work done, I was through menopause, and lo and behold, my A1C was in the pre-diabetic range, 5.7, not crazy, but nonetheless. So I think I was kind of surprised, just given, lifestyle and, food choices and whatnot. Of course, I hit it hard again. My paleo went keto and started doing intermittent fasting. Often I would, interchange between eating and fasting. I tried some low FODMAP for the bloating and constipation. Sleep wasn't great because I was still very active. Sleep wasn't great. Really wasn't tremendously successful at bringing my A1C down. Pricked my finger throughout the day for probably 3 years, just, seeing what affected outcomes there. My adrenals were tapped, and, so I was definitely experiencing a cortisol response from a lot of activity, underfeeding, and I think the intermittent fasting, which went along with that, stress for my body. I didn't have an autoimmune response, so no Hashimoto's. Yeah, moving on. As I said, end of 2018, I'm sure from overuse, I developed the issues with my arm. Tried a number of different ways to resolve. In 2019, I, started with an app that basically talked to me about, my macros. So, and I think that was the first time that I ever realized how much protein was right for me, which was, it was like, wow, okay, this feels like a lot. I stopped intermittent fasting. I got great results, I have to say, because I was, I think, fueling for the first time. I wasn't underfeeding, and especially with protein. So my weight lowered, my body fat lowered, and then that's when I got out of the pre-diabetic range. My A1C went down to 5.4. I assumed it was because I had added in some carbohydrates, but I now know that it's just because I was under fueling and working hard and just stressing my body out. Yeah. So in the end of end of 2021, and started my carnivore journey, which I really didn't have problems transitioning as long as I ate my protein with the fat that went along with it. I did run, probably 3-4 months into it, I did run the fruit and honey experiment for, maybe a couple of weeks. My energy really was very low at that point in time. And, having honey in the house was just a slippery slope for me because, a quarter teaspoon leads to a teaspoon and so on and so on. So I ended that experiment really quickly and my energy resolved. I did, after that, that was when I started adding in some electrolyte, which my body really seemed to crave, and, stabilizing energy and whatnot. So it does beg the question, was it the electrolyte or was it the hydration? So anyway, that's kind of why I make sure I have my protein and fat and I stay well hydrated. And if I am in an endurance activity, I'll add in some electrolyte. And by the way, I certainly did not miss any of the fat. The honey or the fruit. Recently, I tried adding in extra butter because that's a little compelling for me. The problem I found is that my clothes started getting a little tight. So adding in loads of extra fat and trying to get in enough protein with, the fat that comes along with it, it was, I'm guessing a bit too much fuel for me. I might try it again in the summer when I tend to be a little bit more active in my endurance activities. So that's where I'm at. The activities that I enjoy, I do functional range conditioning, strength training, but not always at a bar. I love to row, love to run. I get some rucking in. Yeah, just a little bit more about my what I discovered with strength. It was kind of a happy coincidence, I'll say. So since my arm, there just would be times when I would step up to a bar, whether it's, neutral positioning or not. And sometimes it would be fine. And sometimes, my arm would just scream. And it didn't necessarily happen in real time. So it's which would have been super helpful. So a happy coincidence was I was up your way this past summer during hay season. I was like, well, yeah, I want to get out there and work. And so for probably 4-6 hours a day, I was moving, loading, unloading bales of hay. My body was mostly it was completely fine, which it made me so happy. And so, how that's translated when I've come home is, I try to lift things closer to my body. So that might be sandbags or, wrapping my arms around, heavy bags. So anything close to my body, it seems really, really good for me. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I don't stay away from the bar, but I don't do it with every single workout. What I really have learned is that HIIT training 5 days a week is not, working against the clock is not necessarily the best thing for me. I love the compound movements. I keep doing those, but I don't think HIIT training every single day, or let's just say most days of the week, is really the best thing for me. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's been a great journey. I have no reason to go back to what I'm doing. So needless to say, I used to love to cook. I'd spend 3 hours a day and, cooking dinner and whatnot. I don't miss cooking. Food is pretty minimal. Well, the repertoire is pretty minimal. It's just mostly beef every day. We happen to keep our freezer well stocked. So since we farmed, but no longer farm, we do support local farmers. So we go and we get a half of beef and keep it in the freezer. So that's pretty much what I have. So there's always a couple pounds of ground beef that's thawed. I would say my favorite cut of steak is, I love a chuck eye steak. And my favorite braising cut would be a cross-cut shank. And while I would never discourage anybody from going to the grocery store, getting their meat, possibly consider buying meat in a larger quantity. So, you can spend a couple $100s on a freezer and then keep it stocked. And so that translates to the price that you're paying for your ground beef is the same price that you're paying for your high-end cuts of meat. So it's, should anybody be inclined, it's a pretty decent way to go, but by no means the only way to go.
All right. Well, that's quite a bit. So I want to just kind of delve into a couple of things there. So you had, it sounds like by all accounts, you generally were a healthy person, engaged in healthy activities for most of your life. It wasn't like you were eating garbage and suddenly decided I'm going to get healthy. So you had tried all these things. And a lot of people would say, you don't need to go to carnivore. It's too extreme. Why don't you just eat a balanced diet of whole foods and exercise and, and just eat some vegetables and eat a little bit of fruit and a little bit of whole grains and beef and just avoid the processed food. And you had largely done that. I mean, maybe not the grains. I mean, if you're paleo, but regardless, you were kind of just doing that. And yet you still had some of these issues. Anyone see this coming up? The chronic, I assume either golfers or tennis elbow or both. Sounds like medial tonsillitis, which it was a bane of my existence as an orthopedic surgeon because everybody had it and you don't have really good treatment options for you. Here's a brace, here's some anti-inflammatories. Maybe we'll do some surgery, which may or may not work, type of thing. And it's frustrating, and it can plague you for a long, long time. And it's interesting, like I said, it's interesting that it goes away on diet. I mean, I've seen it so many times, it doesn't surprise me anymore, but still people are like, what? That doesn't make sense, but it actually happens, which I think is really cool. And then the other thing is, you're raising your own food for a while. And I certainly echo your sentiments that if we can support our local ranchers, all the better. Like I said, I'm not going to fault somebody for going to the supermarket because that's what they know and that's what they're used to. And maybe from a price standpoint, they don't have a freezer. So you do what you can. The other thing that, let me ask you this. How about any mental clarity, cognitive performance benefits, mood performances? Did that affect you at all? Or were you always pretty much the same on that?
No. So, the fatigue factor, I generally think of myself as somebody who's just kind of like, go, go, go. But yeah. And so, even eating a, quote unquote, clean diet, I still had that aspect going on. And what I notice is that when I have that meal of protein with, it's the requisite fat, I just can feel, I don't want to say I get over energized, but I feel I don't get fatigued. I'm not tired. That's a really big deal. Again, my energy is just very stable. I have no problem with my endurance activities. I have no problem lifting. I think I'm, mentally acute enough so and whatnot, but mostly it's the just really decent energy. So there's no ups and downs as far as that goes. And I think I'm just going to add to that. It wasn't part of your question. I think over time, when I was, having enough protein, but low fat and low carb, I kind of began to resent it several years in. It's just because I have a plate of dry protein and some dry vegetables. And I was like, it's just, I don't want to keep doing this. Yeah. So, so I finally got to have, tasty protein with the fat. And
yeah, it's something, because there's a lot of advocates out there for higher protein diets, and I'm certainly in the protein camp that I think protein is good. Most people undereat it. Now, can you eat too much? Potentially, for sure. For certain people, I think that's true. And yeah, I mean, if your energy sources, whether it's carbs or protein or fat, are so low or relatively low, it is kind of a miserable existence. You're kind of hungry, you're like craving things, and you just, how long do I want to live that way? And so it's like, as Stefansson, when he was living with the Inuit Eskimo or Inuit, he would say, protein, meat plus fat was all you really need. This is the balanced diet. You don't need anything else beyond that. And I think that bears out when we've seen that over and over again. You mentioned you tried a couple of experiments. I wanted to just kind of walk down those a little farther. So the fruit and honey thing, I mean, there's people advocating for that and for whatever reason. And they tell you, I guess the thought is, if I don't eat some sort of carbohydrate, my thyroid's going to tank. I'm going to have cramps. I won't be able to sleep or something, whatever happens. And some people will, so their solution is, well, let's just add a bunch of fruit and honey. And they seem to be low problematic food. It's certainly better than eating, Doritos and Twinkies, right? For sure. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of people try this experiment. They do it for a while. They say, I feel better. And then you see them 3 months later, 6 months later, and like, that didn't really work for me. And then they go back to a relatively kind of stricter carnivore diet. How long, you said you tried for a couple of weeks. What compelled you to try? What were you concerned about? And why did you try that? And then what did, you mentioned it just, your energy tanked. Why do you think that was?
Well, I tried it because, there are those out there that say, hey, it's fine. And I thought, well, not that I was looking for variety, but I said, oh, well, this could afford me some variety. Yeah. I mean, that was, it's really about it. It was really about trying a few things. So it's like, okay, the carnivore aspect is great. It's fine for me. But there are those out there who are saying that, I could potentially do this. So, all right, let's give it a try. And it just really, I just didn't feel good. I mean, and at first I was like, gosh, why am I having no energy? Because I'm eating the same, and then and I'd been feeling fine since December, and again this experiment was in March, and then all of a sudden it occurred to me. Well, I think what I did was, because I saw the potential issue that consuming mostly the honey could be for me. I cut it all out, and I didn't miss it. And
did it impact your appetite in any way? I was curious.
No.
Made you hungrier or anywhere? Because some people say when they start adding some carbohydrates, they just start getting hungrier and hungrier. Was that an issue for you?
No, because it's it takes it takes a bit of effort for me to eat enough protein, I'll say. So yeah. And so hunger wasn't an issue, but I think really at the end of the day, it was more so, well, why, why bother doing it? Yeah. I didn't miss it. I didn't feel great. And so why bother? So it was kind of like realizing that I hadn't taken my supplements that I had taken for years. And it's like, I didn't feel the need to, so why continue it?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, and like I said, I don't fault anybody for trying these things. If it would have worked out for you, that'd have been great too, but it just didn't. And so that's the way it goes. The other thing somebody was asking about the high fat phase that you went through, how long did you do it for? You said you were adding butter and you just started gaining, I guess, so much body fat, I guess. I mean, what was it?
Yeah.
How long did you pursue that? And then I want to ask you said enough protein. What does that mean to you? Because I'm just curious what your protein requirement you think is.
Okay. So with regards to fat, when was I? I think I started that in August or September. It was probably early November or so that I was like, given the amount of activity that I am currently engaged in, my clothes weren't fitting well. I did check my weight and I was up, a few pounds. So it's like, I'm working on that. So, I'm not opposed to, adding butter. And as a matter of fact, sometimes, infrequently, I'll take a little grate of butter, just for a little umami, just for a little flavor, across some protein, just the same as I would taking a little grate of cheese across the top. Again, just for flavoring. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with it. I might try it a bit more in the spring or summer when my endurance is a little bit higher. My endurance activities are a little bit higher. Again, I like the idea of it, but we'll see. Because I would say lower my protein in order to be able to, add in a lot of extra butter, or I'd have to, I don't know.
How much protein? Yeah. Okay. I guess you're going to.
So yeah, with regards to the protein, I give myself a range of 0.8 grams per pound of body fat or body weight, 0.8 to 1.2. I generally tend around the 0.8 to 1 gram. For myself, if I'm super active, I have a little bit more, but so for me, that translates to about 17 to 22 ounces a day of protein. Yeah. So it's always my threshold. I call it my gatekeeper. So I just make sure that I get that in.
So we're looking at, in terms of gram, I'm guesstimating around 120-ish grams of protein a day, somewhere in that neighborhood.
No. So it would be, I just turned my phone off. So anyway, the 155. Anyway, I'm right now I'm around 155. So anyway, the 1 gram would be
maybe 150.
150 to 155 grams.
Yeah, that is quite a bit of protein for, what a sort of an average woman would eat. A lot of them, they probably get half that, if that, in many cases. And because they've been sort of, I don't know, brainwashed and believing protein was bad for them or something, or you just need to get all your calories from salad or something crazy like that. How does the your immediate circle, family, friends, close friends, do they view you as completely crazy? You're living in a city, San Francisco is probably, of all the countries in the United States that are likely to ban meat, and you're there.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting. So what's going on with you, with the family, and then maybe just in the community?
So my family, we've always cooked in this house and we've always eaten, clean. And that's true, for my husband and my kids who are in their 20s, and really kind of paid attention to food sources. I'm the only one in my family that's doing carnivore. My husband has some carbohydrates because he feels that he kind of bonks in his workouts if he doesn't have some starches. He did say, though, that when he needed to lose some body fat, it was a very, very seamless, very easy way for him to lose body fat. So, again, so for my immediate family, my kids eat carbohydrates, but their diets are super clean. As a matter of fact, my daughter, not to seg into that too much, but my daughter, who lives in Washington, she she raises all her own food and does most of her own butchering too. So anyway, yeah, good stuff coming from her. And even my son, who's a college student, he's like the one person in his house that cooks for himself every day. And I think the people around me, I mean, they're either interested or not. And what I have done, if I've gotten into some social situations at someone's house, so if somebody is, I kind of look at it as it's a heart force. So if somebody is preparing a meal for me, what feels right to me is I don't want to be that person for me. I don't want to be that person that says, I only eat meat, which is really, that is all I eat. But what I've done this past year is, if I get invited to someone's house, I eat before I go. Then I seek out the protein, and then I put on my plate what I call the no thank you helpings. Nobody really cares or notices or asks for that matter. So that's kind of how I've done it for myself. Fortunately, I haven't been invited to, a pizza and pasta fest, because that would, that wouldn't work so well for me. So it happens infrequently, but that's what I've done. Yeah, I do have my vegan friends. I think really, as much as anything, nobody comments. So I'm sure they have thoughts, but you know what? I feel great. Many people my age or younger aren't as active as me, and they're certainly plagued by this or that. And so I just do what I do. Presumably, I'll lead by example and see, whoever's interested, great. And
yeah, fair enough. I wanted to ask, just delve more into the no thank you help. I always talk about, like, if you go to a steakhouse and you just order steak by itself, everybody's going to look at you. But if you just have a piece of broccoli on your plate and you don't even touch it, no one cares. It's just like, okay, well, there's broccoli on his plate. It's okay. He's normal. He's not.
It's it's so true. I mean, really, I think that, people don't really care, yeah, you're probably right. I never even thought about it, but, seeing these little helpings and then the protein, people glance at it and probably, it's like, yeah, okay, that's a normal plate. But, yeah. So, and whether I eat what's on my plate, that's, I eat the protein for sure. Let's put it that way. But I think at the end of the day, people don't really notice or care.
One thing you made a statement of, and I am very much aligned with this. I mean, there's exceptions, but you said, I was in there, there's biomarkers you're tracking, and it's like, you just said, I don't want to mess with that anymore. I just want to go on how I feel and enjoy my life and live my life, and not sort of perseverate on what this lab might show. How do you because other people say, oh my God, I've got to worry about every single biomarker, and it's got to be within this perfect range, or I'm not going to have optimum life or optimum longevity or something like that. There's people that really they think a lot about those types of things. They spend a lot of resource and time doing that. And it's somewhat freeing just to say, hey, I feel good. It's the best I've felt in years. My quality of life is great. And that's all I care about. How did you, were you always that way? Or was there a point in your life where you were worried about this stuff?
Oh no. So when I went into pre-diabetic range, that was when I was like, that's when I found the functional medicine doctor, and, they're really the ones who would order everything. And that's when I learned that, oh, okay, yeah, my thyroid is low. But, so I learned a lot in that process. And so I would get labs done every 3 months, every 6 months. It was of high interest to me because I was like, oh, see that one, whatever, that T3, I gotta work on that and whatnot. And the fact that I was, of course, this was before continuous glucose monitors, I was just poking my finger under every situation. And I mean, I have a whole spiral bound notebook of outcomes from, what's my blood glucose at eating this, or after this workout, or this activity, or sleep, whatever. It was really interesting to me. I think when I stopped, when was my last labs were, I think March of 2020. I was out of the pre-diabetic range. And so I was like, and that was also, I think, is that about the time that we shut down? So I wouldn't have been getting anything further. I don't know, 2 or 3 years that I was pricking my finger every day throughout the day. The advice to me was like, well, your ranges are really tight. So I don't think you're, going destined for type 2 diabetes. So that's when I quit poking my finger. And then I think, that statement of not feeling the desire to, chase these errant biomarkers kind of came from, my time in this carnivore community where, talking about how, this marker or that marker off but in the grand scheme of things is how problematic really is that. And so I think I just kind of adopted that, and again, going back to if I feel great and I'm, functioning optimally, I don't have any interest in chasing those biomarkers, same way as I have no interest in, supplements and all that good kind of stuff. I really just need my diet and lifestyle. Or my meat and lifestyle. So.
Yeah, I guess speaking of supplements, because some people, and I agree, I think most supplements are an utter complete waste of money. I'll just say that. I've said that many times. I think there's some that have shown some efficacy, like creatine from an athletics standpoint, particularly if you're on a diet that's low in creatine anyway, which a carnivore diet is definitely not. You get plenty of creatine on this diet. At least I do. I'm eating 3 or 4 pounds of red meat every day.
Mm-hmm.
Are you concerned? You worried about, fish for omega-3s, and then some people would advocate, a variety of organ meats to get different things. Are you doing any of those things, or just kind of like regular old beef and eggs or whatever? Is that what it looks like for you?
Yeah. So with regards to omega-3s, way back from my nourishing tradition days, we were, dutifully taking our vitamin D sourced from cod liver oil. At some point in time, again, getting my biomarkers checked for that, it was like, you know what, your vitamin D is in a fine range. You don't have to take that stuff, which is great. With regards to offal, I hate it, and always have. I straight up hate it. And one time I had a doctor say, isn't it interesting how the people who say that you absolutely have to have internal organs are the ones who actually like them? So, yeah. And I've always kind of held that, I've tried boatloads of ways to try to get it down, but if you don't like it, you don't like it. And I just don't feel compelled, haven't felt compelled.
Yeah, this is where my obligatory thing is, I've collected data on 12,000 people doing this diet. Whether or not someone eats organ meats or not had really minimal to no bearing on their outcomes. Mm-hmm. The same thing, Harvard University study, when they looked at 2,000 people, it said some people ate them, some people didn't. The outcomes were no different. So I find it hard to make an argument that you must include those. And again, if you like them, there's no problem. But mm-hmm. I'm like you, I don't like them. I've tried them many times, grass finished. Prepared by top chefs. And I'm like, the best I could say was, this isn't totally gross. I was like, that's okay, but I've had no desire for them. I don't. Yeah. I get other people are different, but I think it is. I think the people that like them actually sort of feel that there's some necessity, and maybe there's some level of, we all are wired a little bit differently, and some people enjoy them a little better than others. But yeah,
right.
Certainly, like I said, I certainly push back on people spending 3,000% markup to get a little dried pill, which makes no sense to me for this. If you're just going to do it, just eat the dang organ meat and suck it up and go that way and save the money. Mm-hmm. Save the money and buy a decent steak, or buy a freezer, where you can stick your steaks in.
Yeah.
That's my thought on that. What, as far as, you said that, you're able to work now and you don't have these pain issues, your energy's better. Are you, like you said, the high intensity interval training, I engage in that fairly frequently, but I don't do it every day either. I kind of mm-hmm. it out, several times a week. I do it pretty higher frequency, but I'm not bothered by that. And I actually feel pretty good with that. Can you tell physically, is there any objective measurements you can say, I'm actually stronger now than I was, I don't know, a few years ago, even on the high protein diet, or has it been pretty steady for you?
I guess I would answer that by saying my endurance is great. And so that's objective. Because I haven't really been chasing PRs with weights, I feel like I can lift, heavy-ish for me. Yeah, I think that's really how I would answer it. I've stayed away from the high intensity stuff. I'll do shorter Tabatas, and that's super fun and whatnot. So that's probably as high intensity duration that I'll go. But I just, I steer away from hour-long high intensity.
Yeah, well, hour long. I'm not doing that either. My if I do a hit set, at sprint interval training, especially, I'm usually in and out in 10 minutes. It's high intensity. So maybe there's a difference in just semantics here. But like I said, if somebody's doing high intensity interval training for an hour straight, I don't think that's good. I think that's definitely going to be overloading the system for sure. I don't think it's designed to be done that long. Short Tabata, you do the traditional Tabata protocol of eight rounds or 8 sets. That you've done in 4 minutes, I believe. I think it's a 4-minute protocol. Do you, as far as, you said you raised grass finished beef. Are you exclusively eating grass finished beef now? Are you still eating grain finished stuff?
Because we stay well stocked, pretty much I just eat, from my freezer. And that's grass fed. It's not to say that I haven't gone to the store and bought, grain fed meat, or, if that's all I have access to, it's certainly not a bad choice at all. I just happen to, I think I happen to, just really enjoy the taste of grass-fed meat, and I enjoy supporting the farmer too. So, but by all means, I've purchased from, I purchase locally. I've been to the grocery store, Costco, or, wherever. So, but my first choice is grass-fed, and so I set myself up to be able to have that. And hopefully this will never be an issue, but I have to at least, be concerned about the background. But, like I said, you are, like we mentioned, you're in San Francisco. It's one of the C40 cities. The C40 agenda says we want to eliminate meat. Our ambitious goal is to have zero meat consumption by 2030, which I think is never going to happen. It's ridiculous. But do you see that in the, I don't know if you're in the city itself or just in the surrounding area. Do you find, are you concerned at all about that sort of thing happening where they said that, sorry, meat makes you feel good, but you're going to have to just cut back and eat some other stuff, eat some beans and maybe some bugs and for the planet. Are you worried about that at all? I'm not, because, I guess I have my own trajectory. And so, there are folks in my inner circle who don't eat meat. And by golly, they're dealing with some serious issues, health wise. So, and I think with what part of what your question makes me think about is, when we started raising grass-fed beef, it was back when Omnivore's Dilemma was first hitting the bookshelves. And it was very interesting for me to see the number of people who came and bought from us who actually had been vegan. And they saw that, that actually animals could be raised humanely. And they were very interested in that. And I think just interested in changing their diets based upon the welfare of the animal. I don't see it a lot. I think, my friends who are vegan and, lifting really hard, but they're young, I wonder how long their body's going to, allow for that. That's what comes to me. Again, I just kind of go off of my own trajectory of like, well, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Doesn't matter what the rest of the world perhaps could be seeing.
Yeah,
So
I guess I could go running out of time here, but I wanted to maybe delve into one last point. As someone who has produced their own food, and congratulate, I realize that's a lot of commitment and time and resource that goes into that. A lot of people that are anti-meat, the assumption is by raising animals for food, you are somehow abusing them or torturing them or something like. What was your experience? I mean, most of the and I interact with ranchers just about every single day. In fact, I'm going to the U.S. Cattle. I'm flying out to Nashville this afternoon to go meet with the U.S. Cattlemen's Association.
Good for you.
And I know those people care tremendously about the welfare of their animals. It's not animal rights. Animals don't get the right to vote. I mean, they don't build things. They're not architects or engineers. I mean, they're basically animals, but they very much care about the welfare of those animals. They do the best thing they can so that those animals are healthy, they're happy, and at the end of the day, they produce more commodity. They produce more product. It's a symbiotic type of situation. But what was your experience when you were raising animals? Were you out there just kicking your animal? I mean, I know you weren't, but I mean, this is what we get from these people that make documentaries. Oh, they're all out there whacking pigs over the head with a bat, and putting burning cows and torturing them and raping them.
No.
You hear that stuff? It's raise this stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I think back to, first of all, how rotating different animals on pastures, how pastures bare dirt just became really enlivened by rotating the animals in. It's a very neat symbiotic way to observe not only the health of the animals, who our animals were on pasture, and they were rotated through very much the Joel Salatin way of rotating animals in. And our animals weren't stressed. They had access to very good food. Come butchering day, say for chickens, it was a quiet time. And at first we were butchering our own chickens, but then production got high enough that, we started transporting them. But if you're not stressing your animals out and you're not transporting them a great deal of distance for the whole butchering process, I think that also translates to the health and welfare of the animal. I think when people can see animals that are happy and healthy and thriving, and farmers that work day in and day out to those ends, even until the end of life for the animal. I'm just going to say that perhaps could provide a different mindset for folks who think that they know how animals are raised. And confinement has its issues and whatnot. And if that's the only thing that you know of in terms of animals being raised, then I guess that's all you know. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's when you think about it, if you go back 100 years ago, 30-40% of the people were involved in, raising food. And now it's down around 1.5% of the people are feeding, a few million, I think it's like 3 million people are feeding the other 350 million people in this country. And so no one has that experience of actually, going out to a ranch or going out to wherever it is where the food's being raised. No one knows. And so they just see what they see on social media or the internet or some documentary. And it's very much one-sided and propagandized. So anyway, unfortunately, we're running out of time, Michelle. I don't know if you're a social media person or I don't know. Do you care to share any information people can talk to your family that or no? I didn't know.
Oh my goodness. You know what? I haven't convinced myself that social media makes me a better version of myself. Nonetheless, I am on Facebook. And I have an email otherwise. So I guess I do have a website. It's because I'm also in education as well. So somebody could contact me through that as well. So Michelle Smith Educator.com. So anyway, another whole conversation. So
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It's great to see. I wish you continued success and good luck. And like I said, I certainly hope that San Francisco and the rest of the country keeps sane, and we just kind of just let people do what they want to eat and leave them alone.
Yeah,
great.
Indeed.
Okay,
and
guys.
well, thank you, thank you very much as well, and thank you to everybody in the community.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, guys. Like I said, I will not be here tomorrow. Someone else will host the meeting. Like I said, I'm going to be in Nashville talking to the cattlemen folks. And so I'll be back probably Sunday because I got 2 days in Nashville. So anyway, guys, great day. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks. See you later. Hey, folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to Carnivore.diet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success.